There's a squirrel right outside my window. Hi, what are you looking for? He's cute. Hi, I'm Bonnie Claire, and this is my channel Here for Lit, where we talk all about books. And it's been a minute. We just had spring break, and I cannot film when all my kids are home. So now that I know that, it gave me a little taste of what summer break's going to be like. I'm not really sure how I'm going to handle that. So if you have kids, tell me about how you do this. Anyway, that's not a today problem. Today, we will be going over my reading recap for March. I know we're about halfway through April, but that's when I could do this. The first one I thought was just odd. It's called None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. And I listened to it, which I actually recommend listening to the audiobook because one of the main characters is a podcaster. And so some of the chapters are actually clips from the podcast. So when you're listening to it, it's as if you're listening to the podcast. So I feel like that's a better experience. And maybe it was written knowing that a lot of people listen to books now. But either way, that's how I experienced the book. And I recommend that if you want to read this book at all. But it's about two women who meet and they find out they're birthday twins. And one of them's a podcaster. And typically she's interviewed women who have had these amazing careers and lives and done great things to impact other people. And the other, that's Alex. The podcaster is named Alex, and then the other woman is named Josie. And she kind of proposes to Alex, well, what if you interview someone who's about to change their life? Because I feel like I'm about to do something big that's going to change my life. And she kind of inserts herself into Alex's life, but eventually they start making this podcast, and you start to learn that maybe not everything Josie is saying is the truth, and she becomes very involved with Alex and her world and has some quirks, and all this mystery around her kind of grows. It was fine. If you're intrigued, go ahead and give it a try. The next book that I read in March was Drowning by T.J. Newman. T.J. Newman is or was a flight attendant and has written a couple books about airplanes crashing or disasters on airplanes. I read another one and then I read this one. And basically I've decided I just don't like plane crash stories, except for Hatchet by Gary Paulson. I really like Hatchet, but I don't like this one. Sorry. I try to not be rude in my dislike of books, so that's my takeaway with this one, is that I think I'm done with plane crash stories. It opens up too much of what's actually possible, and I don't want to think about that with flying. I didn't grow up with a fear of flying. We flew a lot with being a military family, but I don't love it, and I feel like now that I'm a mom, I do have more anxiety than I used to. So I don't really want to go there anymore. But let me tell you about this book. It is a plane crash early on. And it kind of centers around two primary characters, a husband and wife. The husband, Will, is trapped in the plane in the ocean. The wife, Chris, is a welder and underwater rescuer. It's like the wife's on the outside trying to help rescue the people trapped on the inside. The husband's on the inside using his expertise, trying to help keep everybody safe so that they can be rescued. Also, the daughter of this couple is trapped on the plane with them. So there's definitely that tension of wanting to get this family reunited and also to rescue the other people who are trapped on the plane. They have like a colorful cast of characters, so even though it's mostly about the main two, you do get to know the other characters and personalities really well. I feel like as a flight attendant, she's probably experienced many kinds of personalities, and she was so good at bringing out these different types of people and maybe how they might act in a stressful situation. So that was the good parts. And then with Will and Chris, they actually were having strained relationships. So as they go through this complicated underwater rescue, it's also about their relationship. And so that the stuff about relationships, characters, like that's usually more interesting to me, is just like human connection and experiences. So that part was great. Getting into like the logistics of the rescue, I think she did her research, and so it probably works and makes sense, but I was like, I don't know what half these things mean, and is this actually possible? So that part didn't hold me as much as just human connection. If you feel like you want to read a plane crash story, go right ahead, but I think I'm done. Let's get into something more positive. The next book I read in March was The Serviceberry by Robin Wall Kimmerer, and I listened to this one, so I did talk about this because it's a good spring book. It's still spring, and it's about how in the natural world there's reciprocity, and the author's basically calling out like the selfishness of capitalism and that gross consumerism, and is challenging the reader and also showing ways that we can have more of a gift economy in our communities and showing the benefits of that. And I loved it. I listened to it twice in a row. So this is the second time you get to hear me talk about it too. The next one, I was kind of on a roll with my spring books. I listened to Decluttering at the Speed of Life by Dana K. White, and I listened to this while I was decluttering. I'm in spring cleaning mode, and the way I like to tackle it is throw on a book about decluttering. Maybe I'll get some good tips and just moral support, motivation, while I tackle a few rooms in my house. So I got through this book pretty quickly. I made some good progress in my house. This one I liked. It was like for the everyday person. If you're not like, I'm going to be a minimalist and go all in with that philosophy, it's just good support for maybe how to tackle some clutter that might feel like it's overwhelming you a little bit. I definitely get overwhelmed with too much stuff around, so I felt like it was for the everyman. Is that the word? The next one I read, I made a video ranking all the Riley Sager books, and so this was the final one I had to read, called Final Girls. And spoiler, it was the lowest on my list. I did do a ranking video, so you can go watch that. It was the bottom. Okay, these next two are kind of fun. It was middle grade March, so I really want to revisit books from my childhood. I get so nostalgic. Like, some of my summer memories are going to the library and getting certain kinds of books. Goosebumps is a huge one. I really want to reread all the Goosebumps. Like, the original series, I think, is 60-something books, but we know with all the spin-offs and stuff, not spin-offs, but like the other, like Fear Street, etc., there's hundreds of books, so we'll see. But they're fun. This is not about Goosebumps, though. This is about the American Girl books. So I read 2 of them. I kind of want to reread them because they announced that an adult version of a Samantha story is coming out, and she's a suffragette, and so I want to read that book. It's full of nostalgia for me, but I'm going through getting to know the American Girls again first. So I've just been checking out what I can find at my library. The first one was Meet Felicity, and she's the girl who lives in the colonial Williamsburg time. And now I've actually been to Williamsburg, so I could kind of picture it, but it's basically about rescuing a horse from a mean old man. And then I read Meet Kirsten, and she was my favorite. I have this thing about like pioneer type stories. She was an immigrant that came from Sweden to America and is about the ordeals of traveling and sickness on the boat, and then the long trek to wherever. I think she ended up in Minnesota or something. I don't remember. Wisconsin? But yeah, so she was always one of my favorites because I love the whole idea of starting your life from nothing, building your house out of the resources around you. And so it kind of started with her. I remember we had dress up as your favorite book character day. They still do that at the schools, but for me, I dressed up as Kirsten, and people were just like, what are you? I think I lived in Switzerland at the time, so I don't know how prevalent the American Girl books were over there, but they were big for me. And so people were just like, are you a pioneer girl? I'm like, yes, but I'm Kirsten. Those were the only 2 I read, but I want to read more. But those were, yeah, quick and easy, just maybe an hour of reading. It's very quick. The last one was on my 40 before 40 list. I had to catch up with these teenagers I work with. And it was The Outsiders. This is the only one I have a physical copy of. The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. And it's required reading, I think, for most schools in the States. Definitely around here, 8th graders read this book. And I'm friends with an 8th grade teacher, so I was talking to her about these, an English teacher, and so I was talking to her about this book. And I talked to the teenagers I work with about this book, and so I was like, finally, I'm going to read this book. I love this book. So it's about these rival gangs, the Greasers and the Socs in Tulsa, Oklahoma in the 60s. And it's mostly following Pony Boy, and he's in the Greasers, and he's being raised by his older brothers. And so it's really about family as well as found family and the differences in the social classes. You get to know the group of boys in the Greasers really well. The whole found family aspect and that deep friendship was really touching. I don't want to spoil anything, but this book, I just loved it. I just was really touched by the friendship aspect of it. It was heartbreaking. It did shatter me a little bit, and then I found that there's the Outsiders musical. And so, of course, I was listening to the music, and that broke me again. So I'm just a broken little mess. And what I would like from you is to recommend some happy books, because I need some happy books. After I just kind of read one after another, and I don't always keep track like, oh, this is all my March books, because I'm just reading. And then later I'll go back where I mark when I finish the books. And I looked at this group from March, and I'm like, those are so sad. Why do I read so many sad books? So please give me some happy books to read. I need some joy in my life, please. And thank you for watching. I hope you subscribe and come back, and I'll just see you whenever.